Well, welcome to another exciting episode of our Leading Ladies podcast. Now, this is a new one for us. We are actually bringing in our guest today, Dr. Kruti Lehenbauer, and we're so excited to have you here because you are in Texas and we are in Michigan, and the weather in Michigan is probably not like the weather in Texas, but we're really excited to do this. So welcome, Kruti. Thank you so much for joining us on our Leading Ladies podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So I just love this because we're able to really have this amazing conversation. And so thank you for experimenting with us a little bit.
I'm really excited to be here too. I've had a long relationship with Walsh. And for those of you most of you don't know me, I'm Kruti Lehenbauer, and I am an economist and statistician by training. I've been in academia since 2003. Finally, quit full-time academic position last year, and I run my own business now as a consultant, coach, and business advisor.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. So yes, you have definitely been a really great influence in Walsh. I know that you follow us on LinkedIn, and I love your comments and your posts. And really what it really was exciting to talk with you about is your journey through what you're doing and your educational background and your training, because it really does span the gamut from business and data and technology to coaching and leadership and consulting. So if you could, Kruti, share a little bit about what brought you to what you do now. Like, what were some of the main points along your business and leadership journey that led to today?
So I was 5 years old when I decided that I was going to become a teacher. And my whole life, I think, has been building towards that always. And as I got older, grew up from 5, it was just a question of figuring out who I wanted to teach.
Yeah.
Like what group. And when I finished my bachelor's, I qualified to teach school, but then I was like, I don't have any patience for kids. So that's not good. And so I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to do a master's now. And once I started that, I was like, well, if I just go ahead and do a PhD, well, then I have all my options open. And so I kind of Forrest Gumped my way through what to do, but because I knew what I wanted to do. And so I just had to then decide what I enjoyed. And I've always been kind of all over the place. I have a lot of interests. I love to read. I love math. And bringing it all together, statistics became the sweet spot with economics and public policy thrown in. And then, it directly applies to both sides of a business, the actual functional side. And then there's the side in which you have to maintain compliance with rules and regulations. And so here we are, 20 somewhat years later, I was like, yeah, you know what? I could do this on a full-time basis too.
Well, Kruti, a couple of things you said, I love this. Let me just, I want to make sure I highlight a few things that you said that I really like. And the first is you figured out how to do it because you knew what you wanted to do. And I hear that from leaders and entrepreneurs a lot, where they say, I don't necessarily know how I'm going to get there, but I want to do this so much, I will figure it out. So the mission, the purpose pulls them through the how of figuring out how to get to the end that they want. And I think that that's a really key, important success strategy for our listeners. It's okay if you don't always know the path. A lot of folks will say, well, I'll get started once I know how. And what you're speaking into is you learn how by getting started. It's almost the reverse.
Yes, absolutely. And actually that kind of a mindset where you know what your objective is, and you learn along the way that, you're going to mess up. It's not always going to be perfect. There's always going to be that one class that really kicks your rear end and you go, what am I doing with my life? I'm not meant for this, have all those feelings. Yeah. But if your objective is clear, then you can adjust your goals. as long as you get.
You said statistics, and I thought for some folks that is statistics. So it's so cool that you have taught a class and know an area that can be there. But the other thing I really like is you've had this superpower. You've had this sort of through line of teaching throughout your life. You kind of said early on, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And then we were talking a little bit in the pre-show about how you do coaching, business coaching, but you said, I'm probably not nice enough to be a leadership coach. I'm more of a teacher. I'm more of a director. I'm more of a consultant. And I want to get people, I want to hold them accountable. And I think that that's really important too, because a lot of times leaders and entrepreneurs, they think about leadership coaching or entrepreneurship business coaching as well. We have to be encouraging and supportive. And yes, you do. But there's also this sense of a coach pushes the players, right? The coach doesn't align with the players or the team when they say, oh, we don't know if we can do this, or we're in breakdown mode. The coach is saying, nope, I have a vision for you. And they drive toward the vision. Speak into that a little bit with your clients and what you've seen.
You actually nailed it very nicely, but I'm going to, try to expand on it a little bit. What I found is that as a teacher as well, for all these years, my goal has always been to empower everybody around me, whether they're my students, whether they're my colleagues, even if they're my friends.
Yes.
I'm the person who's like, do we need to take care of this? Like, let's do this, And the reason is not because I want to take control of what they need to do, but if I can help them continue seeing the big picture and help them through all the processes, holding their hand when required, scolding them when required, as long as it gets them to their desired goals and objectives, without getting lost in their failures.
Yep.
That is the big thing.
I love that. I love that. Without getting lost in their failures. And I think about it too, is without buying into our stories. And I'll speak for myself. Like I had a business coach who would say, Susie, if I align with that, if I agree with your limiting statement, well, I can't do this because, or this won't happen at the company I'm at because, then you're in trouble and your company's in trouble. And when they said that to me, I thought, wow, that really resonated, because it wasn't as if they were challenging my statement. They were actually holding leadership for me and saying, if I align with that belief system, then you're in trouble and the company's in trouble.
Yeah, you have to elevate yourself. And sometimes it helps having somebody else tell you that you're capable of it. You have the power to overcome your self-limiting beliefs.
Oh, I love this. This is so perfect. And it really shows a theme, because in all of our Leading Lady podcasts, all of the leading ladies have spoken into the belief systems, have spoken into what made them successful. And you're very successful. I mean, you have a PhD, is both the education, the experience, and then also the fact that they changed the way they thought. Like there's just a different mindset of successful people, right? They think differently. They perceive adversity differently. So many of the leading ladies we had on, and you're speaking into this, see adversity as an opportunity to grow, not as a reason to step back.
Absolutely. It's all about overcoming. And I like what you said about satisfaction. Yesterday, I saw an article which talked about satisfaction or success and fulfillment as if they were two different things. And I basically was like, they have to be the same thing, because how else are you going to measure success? Money is not success. If you've given up somewhere along the way and said, oh, this is all I'm capable of, that's why I'm successful. No, that's not. If you're learning every day, if there's something new to look forward to every day, that's what it's going to make you wake up in the morning with this feeling of, hey, I'm going to do this today.
I love this.
Before, but I'm going to try.
Do you get that too? Like I do that. Like I'll just wake up in the morning at 5:15. It's like this like shot of cortisol in my body, and I'm like so excited to start the day. And I know that people listening to that, you could have mixed feelings, right? You could have things come up and say, it must be nice for you. But I built that. And it sounds like I had to build me, right? I wasn't always like that. And by the way, this goes for days when I know I've got some difficult things on the plate. because there's just this excitement to grow and to learn, and this knowledge that, whatever it is, we're going to figure it out. When you have your clients, like, speak a little bit into, how do you help them have that mindset? How do you help them have that I'm going to get up and crush the day mindset?
I think that what really helps with a lot of that is setting goals and objectives that align with what their vision is.
Yeah.
And adjusting that vision or those objectives or those goals as required. But I have found, and this is going to sound a little silly, but sometimes it's the small wins.
Oh, yeah.
When you have a big project in hand, set a target for something that's going to make you feel like, oh my God, I did this in 1 hour. I call it my clean the desk syndrome. It's like, if you have nothing else and nothing else is fitting into place, spend a few minutes just cleaning your desk. It'll give you a feeling of accomplishment. It'll get you past whatever it is that's holding you back. And you will start thinking about, okay, well, I got this done. Look, my desk is clean now. That adrenaline rush, sometimes it has to be, like you said earlier, you create that.
Yeah.
It may not naturally occur, but I have been known to take out dishes and rearrange them just because that'll give me that I did something feeling.
Oh, Kruti, we're so much alike. I mean, I'll sometimes on the weekend, if I have like 30 minutes that I'm just thinking I need to do something that's not too intensive mentally, I'll go to my closet and I'll rearrange the colors, or I always plan outfits out a week in advance because I don't want to be thinking about it every day. Right. And I just find there's just such a sense of accomplishment and achievement. And I hear that a lot too from leaders and entrepreneurs. They'll say, like, sometimes I just write things down to check them off the list, because there's something in the brain that when we finish what we start, right, it builds that neural pathway. And so I like how you said that about, you have them set these goals, even if they're small. In fact, I don't know how you got your dissertation written, but one of the things I share with my doctoral students, I'm teaching a class in our DBA program, our number one Forbes ranked Walsh College Doctorate of Business Administration program. We're so proud of this, number one in the world by Forbes. And one of the things we talk about is, when I wrote my dissertation, I would kind of reward myself if I finished a section or a chapter by going to TJ Maxx and like just shopping at TJ Maxx. I would say, okay, I'm only going to spend this amount, but I'm going to go. And it was so fun because even though that had nothing to do with the actual dissertation, I wasn't writing it about shopping. It was a nice little way of saying, I'm going to put this carrot at the end of this goal to get me to the finish line, because writing the dissertation was so unnatural. I had never done something like that. I didn't have a roadmap, but I had a roadmap for shopping, and I knew what would get me out of the house and excited to go. So sometimes it is the little wins, whether we clear the desk, whether we clear the computer or the closet, the cupboards, or just reward ourselves with shopping. Those hacks, those little dopamine hacks of the brain really work.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I have like little rewards for every little thing for myself.
I love it.
Some of them are just like, oh, okay, well, I'm supposed to eat healthy food, but I'm going to reward myself with, so even when I don't eat it much anymore, but when I was a grad student and a lot of cereal, right? So it was like, I had the healthy cereal, and then I had like the sugary, sweet stuff that I love. And it was like my reward cereal for eating one bowl of what I have to.
Yes.
I get to eat what I want to. And
oh my gosh, I love it.
That is the mindset that I bring to my clients too. It's like, sometimes you have to do what you have to do so that you can do what you want to do. And just walking through that and getting past that and having that carrot, that little win, it keeps you going.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because they say dopamine is the drive hormone and serotonin is the satisfaction hormone. So when we need to drive ourselves forward, we want to activate dopamine in the direction of our goals. I always think it's easier to take the systems that are built in place rather than trying to create new ones. Just activate the ones that are already built. That's the mechanism of action in our brain.
Exactly. And another thing that I do is and I've done this for years, even with my students. Your brain cannot tell the difference between, so positive and negative words, your brain can tell the difference. but it cannot tell the difference between something spoken sarcastically or spoken without sarcasm.
Oh.
So when you're feeling really down and you're telling yourself, well, I can't do it. It's too hard. Like, oh my God, I'm such a genius that this is not even a big deal.
I love this.
It's the same thing. It's the same, in a manner, you might think that it's the same thing. It's a limiting belief. But since your brain can't tell the difference, it gets to work on finding a solution.
Yes.
Which,
I love that.
If you say that I can't do it, you're not going to find a solution. But you're like, oh my God, I'm such a genius. I'm going to be able to do this. And I'm going to figure out how. And it just, again, there is sarcasm in there, but your brain can't tell the difference. So go for it.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's such a great, I want to highlight that for a minute because you're right. That comes down to the 4 Agreements, that book by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks about be impeccable with your word because words create the building blocks of our life. And so the words we use shape our reality. And if you hang around folks that are always using breakdown words like, oh, that's just a mess, or this is mass chaos, or whatever, they're actually creating that reality. And it has a feeling to it. You can kind of feel the energy of it. It's like low level energy, right? It's like, oh, right. And then there's the folks that are saying, like you said, wow, I'm going to figure this out. What an opportunity. This is a pickle. Now let's solve it because I always can solve something, right? Or I had a friend that would say things like, I do really difficult things. I can do those well. And if we have that as the belief system, then as you said, the brain goes to work on how rather than kind of fanning the flame of the problem, right? Because problems need energy. They almost need oxygen to grow and to keep flaming up. So we want to make sure we acknowledge them, but then we shift. So I love that. Well, Kruti, let's talk about something kind of different and exciting here. So when we connected, you reached out, you saw that I was writing the book Quantum Lead that takes a look at quantum entanglement and quantum physics and applies it to leadership, specifically leadership vision and a lot of what you're talking about now. And one of the things we had talked about is, do you have an experience? Maybe you have one or two, but maybe there's one that stands out for you that was so interesting, so synchronized that it would almost be too much to just say this is a mere coincidence. In essence, you almost felt like time connected from past and present, or you just had a weird situation occur where you're like, wow, if this didn't happen this way, I would have never believed it. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I have a very personal example of the biggest thing. There's tons of those coincidences in my life, which is why I reached out, because I'm a firm believer that out of chaos comes a lot of meaning, if you know what you're seeking. And so what everybody else in the quantum physics world considers chaos, in some or the other dimension, it's perfectly explicable.
Yes.
And it's just a question of being in that dimension. I know it sounds like a little, but that's how I feel. That's how I think. So my older son we were having a lot of difficulty having children, my husband and I. And so it was just one of those things where we were just like letting universe take care of it if it happens, right? And we were just going to live our life the way it went. And I still remember in August of 2007, I was driving home from my work and I parked outside and I took a little piece of paper, and I don't know why this happened. And I wrote down May 25th, 2008, and I wrote down DEB. I had never thought about a name for a child or anything because it was so like out of the blue. I wasn't going to. So I just wrote it down, DEB. And then I just threw it back in the glove box. My son was born on May 23rd.
Wow.
Of 2008.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't know. And I had completely forgotten about that piece of paper. So we named him Devansh, which is DEVANSH. And then, then I found a piece of paper and I was like, Lynn, because I had dated it. And it was like, there was no way I would have been able to predict it, nothing. It was just there.
Oh my goodness. Isn't that amazing? I mean, so you wrote this down What were you feeling at the time? Like, did you feel an emotion, a connection?
I think I was very emotional because we had been having all the difficulties.
Yeah.
But and like I said, I just pulled outside the house. It wasn't even like, and I was just like, something when I was driving said 25th of May, 25th of May. And I just wrote it down, and it was somewhere early in August. And like I said, I just threw it in there because I write down everything.
You do?
I do, but majority of what I write down does come true. So I'm careful about what I don't write negative things.
Well, wait, it's interesting you say that. Okay, first of all, that is an incredible, incredible story. I am amazed that that is like so spot on, because it's almost as if the future, when your son was born and his name, like sort of pinged back into the past and was with you when you wrote that down. And at the same time, when you wrote that down on the piece of paper and put it in your glove box, it sent a message into the future. This is the thing with leadership, right? You say you write things down, you almost are careful about it. Do you ever feel that way about your thoughts? I'm almost worried like, whoa, I just thought this. I got to be careful that I'm directing them in the right direction. And the premise for this book, Kruti, and why it's so important what you just said, is that this is not some woo-woo possibility. This has actually got some quantum physics leg behind it. Meaning, if leaders hold vision for themselves, their organization, their team, if they speak in the words like you talked about that actually shape the reality in the way that we want, not that we don't want, then they actually have a responsibility to quantum lead in their organization. Because what you believe about yourself, about your company, about your worth, about your potential, what you write down, even how you think about it, all sears in your brain and in this quantum entangled universe, the reality. So I love this story because you're right. It's almost as if you could say for everything to line up and be coincidence, it's just too much to be coincidence. There has to be some sort of connection in time that you link to. And it's just a beautiful story. What did your husband say when you shared this?
It was like, okay, that's weird. but he's like, but maybe you made it happen. And I'm like, okay, let's just go with that.
Well, Kruti, tell us a little bit now about you. You know, you shared an incredible personal story of quantum entanglement and quantum physics. And I mean, I'm still getting chills thinking about that, especially because we're recording this and we're coming into the month of May pretty soon. So that is like the incredible quantum month, we can say. But tell us a little bit about an experience you had with a business or a company where you encouraged someone to kind of write it down and what you saw come to fruition because of that.
So May is Mental Awareness Month as well.
Oh, it is? This is so perfect. Oh, gosh, you can't make this
May
stuff up.
May is actually, it's a quantum month. It's got a lot of mental awareness things. So this is actually very perfect timing.
So
Talk
perfect.
about quantum physics. Working out. We've been trying to make this happen for like 2 months now, right?
Oh, I know. Not just that, but it's even been a little bit cool when we've been doing this in studio. We had to kind of make the technology work, but to actually have this come out at this time, you can't make this stuff up. This is why we know there's something to this quantum entanglement. So it's so exciting.
Yeah. So in terms of writing it down, rather than an experience where I made a client write it down, because everybody around me, I make them do that. Whether it's my kids, whether it's myself, and it could be a scribble. It doesn't have to be something fancy. But I've noticed that if I write something down, I won't forget it. So I'll write it down. But more importantly, than in terms of looking towards the future, you may not even know what the future holds for you. And sometimes just like writing, listening is another big one. And I have an experience, it's like a quantum experience almost. I told you earlier, I always wanted to be a teacher. 10, 12, 13 years ago, I had a friend who went to grad school with me. He has his own company, reaches out to me and asks me if I wanted to do a consulting project. And I was like, well, okay, I'm a teacher, but sure, I'll do it, And he said, go and get a DBA, like a doing business as title from, with a business name. And I'm like, but I don't know if I'm ever going to run a business. He's like, never say never, just go ahead and do it. And I said, how will it help me? And he goes, because from this day onwards, you can call yourself a business owner. And I was like, okay, fine. So I did it. I listened. I took care of it. Last year, after 20 plus years in academia, I was feeling the need to do something else to have more impact because I had started reaching out to more doctorate students, and I had these experiences in directly with the business world, which made me see that, like you said a little bit ago, people in the business world are very scared of statistics. And I know that I can simplify it for them. Like they only need to know what matters and they need to be able to trust somebody who would help them through rather than making them feel like they're somehow lesser because they don't get stats, Anyhow, so I decided to jump in with both feet. And what helped me was that little ability to say, I've had a business for 12 years.
Wow.
Versus just like, I'm just starting out, Yeah. And I've done a lot of consulting as a part of the fact that I had the business, but I don't know if I would have sought out those opportunities at all. It just like came together.
Well, this is another perfect example. Oh, I love this. We've got two strong examples here. One business, one personal, because it just shows you how this quantum entanglement works in all areas of life. But basically, because you wrote down the DBA, you said, okay, I'm a business owner now. I'm not just, Kruti that's doing consulting, even though that's great. You could do that. That planted the seed in your mind, in the universe, so that when later you were like, okay, I'm ready for my next big leap, it was as if you were just sort of connecting to something you already had done and bringing it to life. Literally the example with your son as well. So that is just so powerful, Kruti. And I think that, so many folks are going to read the chapter in the book that you're in and hear this and think, yeah, I've had those experiences too. And why I love this is it provides a great vision forward for leaders, for entrepreneurs, for women, for business, anybody to say, everybody to say, hey, if I actually take these steps, I can create my future. It's interesting. There's a really cool phrase in Aramaic, abracadabra. Many of us know it from The Sorcerer's Apprentice. And abracadabra is Aramaic for I create as I speak.
Yes.
Because there's a power to our words and there's a power to our thoughts. And when those thoughts and those words are released into the world, writing something down, which is an incredible propulsion system of our minds, then we're able to connect with that which links in, whether it's the future, whether it's other people. So that is such a great example. You're actually living this. That's what's so great is it isn't like you're just observing these experiences. You've actually lived them in your life.
Yeah. And creating these experiences can start very young too. My second son was born because my first son had decided that we are going to have a sibling. And I was like, yeah, we're not, because I wasn't there. And he's like, no, that's what I'm gonna ask for Christmas. And I said, you're not gonna get a child overnight. He was 3 years old at the time. And he said, no, I know it takes 9 months, which means this is 3.5 years old kid. Based on my addition, it would be September. I'm like, yeah, right. My second son was born on 7th of September.
Wow. This just keeps getting even more cool. I mean, so it's as if the very quantum entanglement that brought your first son into the world, he then carried forward for his sibling, oh my gosh, I love this story. And you're just like, you know what? I'm not even going to guess anymore. If you speak it, it may happen. Yes.
And that's why you have to be careful about what you speak.
Yes.
Good, bad, or ugly.
Kruti, this couldn't be more well-timed because I'm literally going to go into we have a leadership team meeting every week on Tuesdays at 1:00. And I was going to speak with them a little bit about, I always like to start with some encouraging leadership words. And many times there are things I learned and I had to journey on as well. I think that's so important as leaders, not to be preachy, but to be teachy, as you have talked about. And I think it was Richard Bach, he said, sometimes we teach best what we need to learn the most. So I love this because you just provided me such a great quantum in time example of the power of language, the power of belief, the power of thoughts, and the power of vision. So I am just so grateful. Thank you so much, Kruti, for our time here today. Thank you so much for all you do for Walsh. I know you've been an adjunct with us for years and you've stayed connected with us. I know you're connected with me on LinkedIn. Kruti, how can folks connect with you? If somebody wants to seek you out, seek your business acumen, your leadership, your coaching, what's the best way? And we'll also put a link, by the way, in the show notes of the podcast. But what is a great way folks can reach out if they're like, gosh, I want Dr. Kruti in my life?
Dr. Kruti in your life is best found on LinkedIn because Dr. Kruti doesn't hold back. She just posts whatever she feels like. But it's always positive. And like I said, even when I'm not sure, there might be sarcasm in there, but that's always funny.
And that's always positive too. Thank you so much. We'll definitely put your LinkedIn profile. I agree with that. In fact, I was just speaking to somebody yesterday who's in radio broadcasting, and he said, despite their audience and their followers on other platforms, LinkedIn is their highest engaged platform. So I think for work in the business industry and data, especially statistics and coaching, that is a strong one. So we will definitely put a link to your profile. I do see the stuff that you put out. I'm amazed. I think it's just amazing. You inspire me every day. And this interview has really inspired me even more to be careful what I write down, what I vision, what I speak. And also as leaders, we have to share this with our teams because that's how we can impact organizations. So thank you for joining us for another extraordinary episode of Leading Ladies. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.